What's up, everybody? It is I, TevinElChopo, friends call me Chop, and we are back with another review. This time, we're talking about Bad Boys Ride or Die, aka Bad Boys 4. So yes, Bad Boys Ride or Die is the fourth installment of the Bad Boys movie franchise, starring Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. So the Bad Boys franchise follows two cops who are also partners and lifelong best friends in Mike Lowrey and Marcus Burnett, and the various adventures that they go on, basically trying to solve cases in the city of Miami. Now, personally, I am actually a fan of all of the last three movies leading up to this fourth one. I think each movie in its own way is a enjoyable and fun experience given the eras that it comes out of, with the first movie coming out in the mid to late 90s, and then we had the second movie that came out in the early 2000s, and the third that came out early 2020. And now that I've seen the fourth installment in the franchise, I gotta honestly say that I don't necessarily think that each movie feels like it was made by the same group of people, if that makes sense. I don't necessarily think that the style of each movie really resembles each other when you watch them all in succession. Now, I didn't necessarily watch the first three movies leading up to this fourth one, but I did watch the first three movies last year, and I couldn't help but notice just how drastically different the styles and even the tone and even some of the subtlety with the jokes kind of waned depending on which movie it was. I feel like the first movie and even the third movie to a lesser extent are the closest you get to complete movie experiences, meaning that we actually have arcs that the characters go on, stakes that actually feel real weight behind them throughout each of those movies, and of course just funny moments and bombastic action, which also makes it more of a complete action movie experience. Now, that's not necessarily a knock towards Bad Boys 2 or even Bad Boys 4. I just think that the second, and now after seeing the fourth movie, I think those two, more than the first and the third, are more or less sequels that feel more like the bombastic action was more of an emphasis than actual character development or actually telling a complete or logical narrative. But I have to emphasize that that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think any of these movies, to be brutally honest, if we're talking from a filmmaker standpoint, are really good movies. However, I do think that they are very fun movies, and I think that sometimes that's all that really matters. You know, we don't necessarily follow John Wick because we think that the story is just so compelling. No, we enjoy the dialogue, and we also, more importantly, enjoy the action sequences. And it's really no different at this point for the Bad Boys franchise. When we come in to see these movies, we're here to see the camaraderie of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence together, which is always amazing. And we're here to see some bombastic, fun action sequences and have a few laughs along the way as well. Now, coming back to this fourth movie, we have Marcus and Mike basically on the run for the whole movie, trying to not only clear their name, but clear the name of their captain who was being framed for corruption and his death. If you don't know, spoilers to Bad Boys 3, but the captain does get killed in that movie by Will Smith's illegitimate son. The son is also in this movie, and he's also a fugitive along with Marcus and Mike, as they all try to clear their names and help out as much as possible. So right off the bat, the things that I liked about this movie, honestly, first and foremost, it's gonna be Martin Lawrence and Will Smith together again. Always, like I said before, a fun experience in every one of these four movies. I think that their friendship on and off screen really shines very brightly. I think that their camaraderie is very well matched with a lot of the action sequences. I think they can hold their own in some of the more dramatic moments in throughout not only this movie, but across all of the Bad Boys movies that they've had. And I think we talk a lot about Will Smith in these movies because he's probably arguably the bigger star in the movie, but I gotta give props to Martin Lawrence. I think that this one, more than any of the other Bad Boys movies, where I kind of felt like it was equally Martin Lawrence and Will Smith's movies, I think that the fourth one is more Martin Lawrence's movie, at least in my opinion. I think that he carried a lot more of the funnier moments versus him bouncing back and forth with Will. There were times where I kind of felt like Will was kind of phoning it in, which I get it. It's the fourth movie in the franchise. They're not the same people. They're older now, different experiences, you know, and I understand. But nevertheless, I do think that Martin Lawrence carried the show a little bit more than Will this time. Not too much more, but enough for me to feel like I needed to mention it. Also, I think that they are taking more of a Fast and Furious approach when it comes to just upscaling the action sequences in the movie. Now, a few of the action sequences that I enjoyed in the movie would include the helicopter sequence and even the final shootout at the end of the movie, both of which were kind of hinted at in the trailer, so it's not too much of a spoiler. But I will say this may be a spoiler, but Reggie, who has been in Bad Boys 2 and in Bad Boys 3, I think he definitely had a great moment in Bad Boys 4 and really shined. And I think that I really appreciate such a legacy character at this point who's been pretty much the butt of the joke literally since he was first introduced in Bad Boys 2, has finally grown into his own and is actually developed into a real character, even if it's just for a singular moment. And I think that was pretty cool. I also think that the redemption of Mike's son, who was introduced in the third movie, was also done relatively well. I think that obviously it doesn't make too much sense because of just the logic of the movie itself, but nonetheless I can appreciate him having more of a good arc, again similar to how they do in the Fast and Furious movies, where the villain in the last movie ends up being friends, or aka family, in those movies. But I think it was still done pretty well enough. There were also a few celebrity cameos in the movie that I didn't particularly hate, specifically Tiffany Haddish, Joyner Lucas, and DJ Khaled. DJ Khaled also made an appearance in Bad Boys 3 as well, so I think it was cool for him to come back into this one as well, even if it was for a brief scene, especially even with the fact that I'm not particularly a fan of DJ Khaled's music, but that's a discussion for an entirely different video. I also think that the pacing for the movie was done relatively well, especially with just how many action sequences that it contains within it. I think that aside from maybe like the first couple scenes at the very beginning, nothing else in the movie for me really dragged in such a way that made me feel like I was sitting in the movie for too long or anything like that, so that's always good. So yeah, overall I really did enjoy this movie, and honestly I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I didn't necessarily think that at this point in the franchise that they can continue to not only go up in terms of just the aesthetics of the action sequences, but also entertain me as much as the first three, especially with the first two being as iconic as they are. But I feel like now that we've had 3 and 4, I think that they're both equally deserving to be in contention with the first two. I think that the same way that Bad Boys 1 and 3 resonate as trying to be actual movies, I think that Bad Boys 2 and 4 resonate for being super fun, super high octane action movies that, while not always logically sound, is always an enjoyable experience to watch. Now, I think that the only real gripe that I have is that, for one, the villain of the movie is pretty generic. He doesn't necessarily do anything, and honestly, him and some of his subordinates kind of looked alike to me. I don't want to sound too racist against white people, but I didn't necessarily think that there was anything unique about him or anything that he was doing or anything that he was saying. It was all just run of the mill. Also, I thought it was very strange that Teresa Randall didn't reprise her role as Martin Lawrence's wife in this movie, even though she's been in all of the first 3 movies. To be fair, it could have been a scheduling thing, and I also read that it could have been for medical reasons why she wasn't available to be in the movie. But nonetheless, it was kind of disappointing just not seeing her in it, even with everyone else still being in it from the last movie. I also thought that Mike getting married at the very beginning was kind of shoehorned, especially since he was marrying someone that we never see in any of the first 3 movies. So it kind of felt random, and it kind of felt like she was thrown in there just for them to have a damsel in distress for the sake of the movie. So other than that, I really don't have too many other complaints against Bad Boys Ride or Die. I found it to be a very fun and enjoyable experience. I can't wait for it to hit streaming so that I can watch it again and have even more of an opinion on it. But I think it aligns perfectly with where the third one left off, and I also think that it aligns pretty solidly with the rest of the movies in this franchise as well. Now granted, I never really looked at these movies as movies that really tried to be Oscar bait or tried too hard to be overly deep or philosophical or anything like that, or overly technical or anything like that either. But I do respect that they are able to take it up a notch in terms of the action. I do respect a lot of the effects and the practicality that they use. I do appreciate that even in their older age ages that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are able to give us another Bad Boys movie, despite even a lot of the rumors about Martin Lawrence's health that have been circulating throughout the run of this movie. I really enjoyed having them together. I didn't notice them really skipping a beat, aside from the obvious beats that they skip for the sake of the plot. Don't want to give anything away. This is a spoiler-free or relatively spoiler-free review. But yeah, overall, I just really like this movie. I think it fits really nicely within the franchise, and I can't wait to see it again. But hey, these are just my opinions. Have you seen Bad Boys Ride or Die? What do you think about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. My name is TevinElChopo. Friends call me Chop, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.